Good morning. I'm Matthew Johnson, Senior Minister of the Unitarian Universalist Church in Rockford, Illinois, and whether you are joining us live at 10 Central on August 16th, 2020, or later, welcome. Whether you're a member or friend of the Unitarian Universalist Church in Rockford or another Unitarian Universalist congregation who's found your way here for worship today, or if you're exploring religion anew and have found us, welcome. Whether you are frightened or grieving or determined or curious or sad or furious or all of the above, welcome. Whoever you are and whatever brings you here, welcome. We're coming to you from the sanctuary at the church. With me today is Tim Anderson, my colleague in worship and the music director of the church. Tim had his summer vacation, although it's hard to call something a vacation when you don't get to leave town. And you spend the time prepping for online classes in the fall, but we're thrilled to have Tim back with us here for worship today. Lindsay Dunn, our Director of Religious Education, who you'll hear from in a moment, and Autumn Powell, our Office Manager, back of the hall running technology for us. Our Worship Associate, Nikki Tickner, has recorded their testimony. You'll hear that later in the service. And Chris Ainsworth, our membership coordinator, is at home and chiming in on the Facebook feed and saying hello to folks. If you're watching on Facebook, there's a comment area. We invite you to say good morning, say hello, so that we know that you are with us. It's lovely to see your names pop up as you give your greetings for the day. Do remember that the feed is public. The ritual of how we worship together each week has been a source of comfort and connection for many of us, including me. So I will ring the bell, and we will worship together. We begin with singing. Our hymn for the month of August, when we're thinking about creation, has been Morning Has Broken. So we'll put the words up on the screen, and we invite you to sing along at home with Tim here in the church. So glad that you are here for worship with us. If today is your first time worshiping online with us, we're especially happy to have you joining us. And do take a moment to like the page and fill out the visitor form, which Chris will post into the comments on the feed for folks. You can also go to uurockford.org and click on newsletter sign up to let us know about who you are so that we can be in touch about the programs and activities here at the church. The flaming chalice is the symbol of our faith, a beacon of truth, a fire for justice, and a warmth for the soul. As Lindsay lights our chalice here at the church, you might light your chalice at home and let us speak together the covenant of our church. Love is the spirit of this church, and reason is its guide. to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in freedom, and to serve human need. This is our covenant. And now we'll sing together our chalice response song. I invite you to breathe in and breathe out. Notice the trees, the roots that go down to the earth. Feel through your feet the earth. Notice the leaves that sway in the wind, the grass that moves. Feel the wind, the spirit of life flow through you and bend. Notice the branches, the way they reach out for the sun, for life. Notice the seeds and the pollen, the acorns and the pine cones. New life spread out, waiting for the right moment to grow. Notice the trees and the grasses and all the earth, which is you, which you are part of. Feel the earth. Feel the spirit, the air. Reach out. Breathe. 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 Let us worship together.
Go out and tell our story, let it echo far and wide. Make them hear you, make them hear you. How justice was our battle, and how justice was denied. Make them hear you, make them hear you.
Make them hear you, and say to those who blame us for the way we choose to fight, that sometimes there are battles that are more than black or white. And I could not put down my sword when justice was my right. Make them hear you.
Make them hear you.
Make them hear.
Go out and tell our story to your daughters and your sons. Make them hear you.
Make them hear you.
Make them hear you.
Make them hear you. And tell them in our struggle, we were not the only ones. Make them hear you.
Make them hear you.
Make them hear you.
Make them hear you. Your sword could be a sermon or the power of the pen. Teach every child to raise his voice, and then, my brothers, then will justice be demanded by 10 million righteous men. Make them hear you.
Make them hear you.
When they hear you,
Hear you. Make them hear you.
Good morning. I'm Lindsay, and I'm the Director of Religious Education here at the church, and I'm happy to be with you this morning. Our story this morning is White Flower, written by David Lamotte. The day was bright and sunny, as most May days tend to be, in the hills of Appalachia, down in Knoxville, Tennessee. A dozen men put on their suits and quickly took their places in white robes and those tall and pointed hoods that hid their faces. Their feet fell down in rhythm as they started their parade. They raised their fists into the air, they bellowed, and they brayed. They loved to stir the people up. They loved when they were taunted. They didn't mind the anger. It's exactly what they wanted. As they came around the corner, sure enough, the people roared, but they couldn't quite believe their ears. It seemed to be support. Had Knoxville finally seen the light? Were people coming round? The men thought for a moment that they'd found their kind of town. But then they turned their eyes to where the cheering had its source. As one, their shoulders crumpled when they saw the mighty force. The crowd had painted faces, and some had tacky clothes. Their hair and hats outrageous, each had a bright red nose. The clowns had come in numbers to enjoy the grand parade. They laughed and danced that other clowns had come to town that day. And then the marchers shouted, and the clowns all strained to hear. Each one tuned in intently with a hand cupped to an ear. White power, screamed the marchers, and they raised their fisted hands. The clowns leaned in and listened like they couldn't understand. Then one held up his finger and helped all the others see the point of all this yelling, and they joined right in with glee. White flower, the clowns shouted, and they reached inside their clothes. They pulled out bags and tore them, and huge clouds of powder rose. They poured it on each other, and they threw it in the air. It got all over baggy clothes and multicolored hair. Now all but just a few of them were joining in the jokes. You could almost see the marchers turning red beneath white cloaks. They wanted to look scary. They wanted to look tough. One rushed right at the clowns in rage and was hauled away in cuffs. But the others chanted louder, marching on around the bend. The clowns all marched on too, of course, supporting their new friends. White power, came the marchers' cry. They were not amused. The clowns grew still and thoughtful. Well, perhaps they'd been confused. They huddled and consulted, this bright and silly crowd. They listened quite intently. Then one said, "I've got it now." "White flowers," screamed the happy clown, and all the rest joined in. The air was filled with flowers, and they laughed and danced again. Everyone loves flowers, and white's a pretty sort. I can't think of a better cause for people to support. Green flower stems went flying like small arrows from bad archers. White petals covered everything, including the mad marchers. And then a very tall clown called the others to attention. He choked down all his chuckles and said, "Friends, I have to mention that what with all this mirth and fun, it's sort of hard to hear, but now I know the cause that the paraders hold so dear." "Tight showers," the clown blurted as he hit his head in wonder. He held up a camp shower, and the others all got under. Or at least they tried to get beneath. They strained but couldn't quite. There wasn't room for all of them. They pushed in, but it was tight. "White power," came the mad refrain, quite carefully pronounced. The clouds consulted once again. Then a woman clown announced, "I've got it. I'm embarrassed that it took so long to see, but what these marchers march for is a cause quite dear to me." "Wife power," she exclaimed, and all the other clowns joined in. They shook their heads and laughed at how erroneous they'd been. The women clowns were hoisted up on shoulders of the others. Some pulled on wedding dresses, chanting, "Here's to wives and mothers." The men in robes were sullen. They knew they'd been defeated. They yelled a few more times, and then they finally retreated. And when they'd gone, a kind policeman turned to all the clowns and offered them an escort through the center of the town. The day was bright and sunny, as most May days tend to be, in the hills of Appalachia down in Knoxville, Tennessee. People joined the new parade, the crowd stretched out for miles, the clowns passed out more flowers and made everybody smile. And what would be the lesson of that shining southern day? Can we understand the message that the clowns sought to convey? Seems that when you're fighting hatred, hatred's not the thing to use. So here's to those who march on in their big red floppy shoes.
Thank you, Lindsay. That is a true story of what happened in Knoxville, Tennessee, and an inspiration of how to keep your sense of humor and win those important fights. We are continuing to worship online, and will continue to do so for the foreseeable future. There are a variety of upcoming events. I want to draw your attention in particular that we are going to have a discussion with one of the authors of Justice on Earth, at the intersection of ecological justice, racial justice. The Reverend Adam Robersmith will join us for a wonderful Wednesday at the very beginning of September, on September 2nd. And you can buy the book, Justice on Earth, from the UUA bookstore or Amazon or somewhere else. And we hope that you'll read it and join us for that conversation on that day. There's more information in the newsletter and the Friday update for that. We will have coffee hour today after church. Chris will be your host today, so we hope that you will come and join in conversation. And the Zoom ID, it will be up on the screen in a moment, so you can write that down and log into Zoom and join that meeting. It's great to hear about you reaching out to each other and offering your support and care to one another during these times. We're doing this for a while. We've been doing this for a while, and it's hard. It's hard to be alone. It's hard to be separated. It's hard not to see each other. It's hard for parents and teachers and everyone else to have to make all these decisions, and it's difficult. And so reach out to each other. Think of somebody in the church and make a call or a text and say hello so that they know that you are thinking about them and vice versa. Each week we take up an offering to support the work of justice and mercy in the world. 80% of what we collect today will go to support the work of the Natural Land Institute. We're focusing in August on creation and ecology and our green sanctuary partners, including the Natural Land Institute, which some of you in the church are board members and longtime supporters of. They work locally to turn land into protected land for wilderness and for other purposes, and do some beautiful work to make sure that there is some natural land that we get to be part of and explore and protect all of creation. So we hope you can be generous this morning. You can give by texting the number that'll be on the screen or going by uurockford.org/donate. Be sure to select Share the Plate. The offering will now be given and received.
Hi, everybody. So these are uncomfortable times. For me, it's been an uncomfortable week. Last Sunday, I got a headache in the late afternoon. It was an annoyance that ran in the background of the normal Sunday routine of baths and laundry, packing up supplies for the week ahead. But by Monday morning, I had trouble sitting upright, and by mid-Monday, I had a full-blown migraine, which after days in bed, a trip to the ER, a week off work, and enough medication to slow down a horse has finally subsided into a lingering mild ache. It's worth adding that this was my first experience with something like this, and I have all the empathy now for people who suffer from reoccurring migraines. It's not just a headache, and if I didn't get that before, I am so sorry. On Monday, I woke up mid-migraine to a tornado siren, an empty house, a cell phone that was dead, and no power. I huddled in the basement shower by myself, pretty sure that one of my top biggest fears of a tornado coming was coming true. It was green outside, and it was so windy I couldn't see anything. We just got power back on Friday. I also got this ridiculous pimple yesterday, the kind that has its own zip code and heartbeat. You might be able to see it. It hurts, it's awful. So I spent the majority of the week in bed with no power, gooped up on goop, and while time slowed down for me, the world carried on. The world itself is uncomfortable right now, and there's much to feel uncomfortable about. As humans, we like to be comfortable. I seek medical care when I don't feel good because I am uncomfortable and I want to be comfortable again. We ignore the news when social issues and public health crises don't directly affect us because to pay too much attention would be uncomfortable. Why make it hurt when it doesn't have to? It's someone else's burden to carry, someone else's fight to fight. I have this thought, though, this little therapist quip, that to be comfortable, you have to get uncomfortable. To find comfort, you have to have discomfort. How do you know what comfortable is if you don't know how uncomfortable feels? I had to have the migraine to value how good not having a migraine is. I had to experience 4 days without power to value the ability to cook boxed macaroni and cheese on my electric stove. I have to have the big pimple to be excited when the big pimple goes away. So on a bigger level, I decided for the first time ever to volunteer for a political campaign, and I attended a training to do so earlier today, Saturday today. I will be knocking on doors and talking about a candidate I support in the hopes that others will support him too. But this is way out of my comfort zone, so much out of my comfort zone. The thought gives me anxiety, it gives my anxiety, but I'm doing it. I've had enough with our current office holders. I decided to get out of my comfort zone to make myself uncomfortable so that hopefully come November I can find some comfort again. And others hopefully will be able to experience comfort too. So my question to you today is, what can you do to make yourself uncomfortable in the spirit of finding comfort again, either for yourself or others or both?
Two readings this morning. The first is from the Gospel according to Luke, chapter 5, verses 27 through 39. After this, Jesus went out and saw a tax collector named Levi sitting at the tax booth, and he said to him, "Follow me." And Levi got up, left everything, and followed him. Then Levi gave a great banquet for him at his house. There's a large crowd of tax collectors and others sitting at the table with him. The Pharisees and their scribes were complaining to his disciples, saying, "Why do you eat and drink with tax collectors and sinners?" Jesus answered, "Those who are well have no need of a physician, but those who are sick I have come to call not the righteous, but the sinners to repentance." And then they said to him, "John's disciples, like the disciples of the Pharisees, frequently fast and pray, but your disciples eat and drink." Jesus said to them, "You cannot make wedding guests fast while the bridegroom is with them, can you? The days will come when the bridegroom will be taken away from them, and then they will fast in those days." He also told them a parable. "No one tears a piece from a new garment and sews it on an old garment. Otherwise, the new will be torn, and the piece from the new will not match the old. And no one puts new wine into old wineskins. Otherwise, the new wine will burst the skins and will be spilled, and the skins will be destroyed. But the new wine must be put into fresh wineskins. And no one, after drinking old wine, desires new wine, but says, 'The old is good.'" The second reading is by my colleague Sean Parker Dennison, entitled, "Can You Believe?" Can you believe in a world where no one is turned away for being wrong? Can you believe in a world where mistakes are simply ways of learning? Can you believe in a place where you feel the lightness of not knowing? Can you believe there is room enough at the table for you and for the one you call enemy? Can you believe in the improvisational nature of mystery and irrational compassion? Can you believe that training you to be a devil's advocate was a way of stealing your tenderness? Can you believe that you can get your tenderness back and become a chief collaborator with love? I invite you to join in the spirit of prayer and reflection. Great Spirit of life and love, be with us as we gather today. We hold in our hearts, in particular this morning, Ed Foster and their children and family, and all those who mourn the loss of Carol Foster, who we remembered yesterday on the grounds of the church. It's good to see so many people who came or who watched at home to celebrate her life and honor her memory, and we grieve with her family. We hold too Cindy Fisher and her family in our thoughts and prayers. Her mother died after an aggressive battle with cancer. Spirit of life and love, be with us in our losses, in our worry, in our fear, in our not knowing. We know that we are welcomed into that space of not knowing with grace and love, but it is hard to feel out of control of the world that we live in and our own lives and the lives of others. We go on week by week, day by day, in this strangeness, We make the best of it as we can, but it is hard. And when we stop and reflect, we feel that strangeness. May you call us toward a deeper love for ourselves and others, a deeper grace for ourselves and others, and a deeper justice for ourselves and others. Thus we pray this day and every day. Amen.
Let justice roll down, let justice roll down. Like the rush of a stream comes a powerful dream. Let justice roll down, justice rolls down. Let the earth be restored, every soul be reformed. Let the healing renew, creation reborn. Here in this sacred space, with the strength of God's grace, let justice roll down, justice rolls down, roll down, justice, roll like an ever-flowing stream. Justice, roll like an ever-flowing stream, flowing stream, roll down. On this glorious day, give us courage, we pray, that justice rolls down. Let justice roll down. Let the vision take flight, and God will delight as waters flow down. Justice abounds. Roll down, justice, roll like an ever-flowing stream. Roll down, justice, roll like an ever-flowing stream, flowing stream, roll down.
Can you believe that you can get your tenderness back and become a chief collaborator with love? Can you believe it? I want to tell you a story today, a story about a new day, about a collaboration with love, and about getting your tenderness back. And so I invite you to join me in an act of imagination. Herod Antipas has been the ruler of Judea for about 26 years, and the people are restless. Out in the wilderness, a wild man named John eats honey and locusts and preaches that Herod is a sinner because he divorced his own wife and married his cousin's wife and started a war and neglected the poor and ignored the word of God in favor of Roman gods. John's movement out in the wilderness grows, though you suspect correctly that Herod will soon have him killed. That's what Herod does. But that's not what brought you here to the home of Levi, your friend Levi. This night, this warm summer evening, the conversation murmurs between the courtyard and the great room, but you didn't come for conversation. You came to see. You and your friends, Dina and her husband Samuel, Dina's brother Theo, and you. Curious, wondering, confused. You've come to Levi's house for this party because you've heard an incredible thing, that Levi had joined up with one of John's disciples, this man Joshua, Jesus in the Greek of the rulers, but Joshua in the Hebrew tongue that all of you speak. Levi, a tax collector, a party animal, friendly, fun. There's a reason you like Levi, always have. But following a holy man, Levi, this you came to see. At first, when you arrive, nothing seems that different. It's the usual crew hanging out and chatting. But Joshua sits in a corner, chatting with others, sometimes looking wistfully in another direction, clearly thinking about something. You mingle, sort of drift in that direction. Who is this man that Levi intends to follow? He looks pretty normal. Dark skin and hair like you, curly, tight hair, average height, pretty typical Judean, not a fair-skinned Roman, that's for sure. Samuel and Dina, Theo and you find a place to sit, close enough to hear the conversation. You listen. Theo, he's a bit of a radical. He wants to overthrow the Romans. I mean, really nobody at this party is thrilled with the Romans, though Levi, the tax collector, and some of his tax collector friends owe their wealth, such as it is, to Roman rule. But Theo's the most vocal. He critiques the empire all the time. He's gotten into fights with his brother-in-law, Samuel, before. Samuel's more of a moderate. He wants to replace the Romans, but he's worried about the how, the details. With whom? He knows the old stories how the Assyrians, who were horrible, were defeated by the Babylonians, who were worse. And then the Persians, who were pretty great, let the people go home until the Romans came, who honestly have been mixed. Antipas is awful, no doubt about it, but his grandfather was much better. Built roads and all kinds of good stuff. Theo wants none of it. Tear the whole thing down. His sister, Samuel's wife, Dina, shakes her head. Your arguing with each other accomplishes nothing, she tells them. Not a single mind was changed by the comment section. Not one. You're not so sure what to do. You agree with Theo most of the time, but his passion troubles you. It's not your personality. You know some of the Romans, and really they're not all bad. The construction manager who lives a few houses down from you, he's kind and decent, not just to you, but to everyone you see him interact with. The us versus them thinking that Theo engages in is not really your style. On the other hand, when you see Roman troops hoisting your neighbors up on wooden crosses for praying to their own God, for questioning all the money going to the military, you think Theo's got it right. Tear it down. It's hard. It's really hard. What is justice? What is fairness? What is effective? What will produce a better life for your children and all children? And what does God want? That weighs on you. What does God want? Some preachers say work to make it better. Others say, ignore these things and just be righteous in your own living. And a few, like John out in the wilderness, say the end is at hand, whatever that means. And so you wonder if this Joshua, this Jesus, will say something to help you know what to do. How do you answer the call of love? So you attend to this conversation. And here's what you hear. One of the more religious folks that don't get wrapped up in politics, just be righteous crowd, he's asking Joshua about fasting. Why don't you all fast? He says. These disciples that you've gathered, these amateurs, you don't know how to follow the religious rules. Why don't you get people with more experience if you're going to build a religious movement? This Levi, whose house we're at right now, I mean, really? Levi? And you think to yourself, he's not wrong. Levi is a strange choice for a disciple. And Joshua leans back and speaks. You hear him talk for the first time with a kind of tenderness in his voice and also a bit of a sense of humor. You can hear it. He tells a parable you've actually heard before from other rabbis about how you can't put new wine in old skins, for the skins will burst. And he says, see, if you're used to the old wine, you think that's better, and it's hard to change. But I need folks who don't know the old ways, folks who can follow the new way. So that's why these fishermen, this Levi, and all these oddballs and newcomers, it's a new day. I need new people. And then there's some commotion at the front door, Romans maybe, or zealots, ready to start the revolution tonight. One or the other, it's not really clear. And when you look back, Joshua and his friends have left. And that's it. That's the man Levi is following. Levi, the new wineskin, ready for the new wine, ready to answer the call of love, ready to build a new way. Levi, of all people. When you and Samuel and Dina and Theo walk home, you talk, of course, about what you saw and what you heard. Theo says that the Roman Empire is the old skin, the old wine. It's cultured and fine and expensive. It's what we're used to. But we need new wine, a revolution. And that means new skins. That's Theo's interpretation. Samuel says he thinks it was more of a spiritual message. The fasting, he says, is about that. Joshua and his friends, have you heard they heal on the Sabbath? They oppose the stoning of women for adultery. They break all kinds of rules. They say that that's the new teaching, the new wine, and the teaching about the closeness of God, about love being more important than righteousness. They're saying the new teaching won't fit in the old skins. That's what they're saying. Dina says, look, you two are ridiculous. He says it was about the students, about how the new student is open, has an open mind, and how hard it is to teach someone who already thinks they have all the answers. And you two are just like that. You think you already have all the answers. You need to be more curious, more humble, more ready to learn. You yourself, you listen, you ponder, you wonder. What does it mean to answer the call of love, to answer the call of God, to do justice and love mercy? How should you go about it? Is Theo right? Should we tear it all down? Or does that way lead to more violence and pain? Is Samuel right? Something about the way we live each day is the answer and that's all we can do? Or is that ignoring injustice for the sake of a false comfort? Or is it what Dina says, and we need to adopt a learning posture and a willingness to learn and grow? Or does that let us off too easy? You ponder. Let me step aside from this story for a moment to tell you two things that I think will be necessary as we move forward through this story. First, the interpretation of the parable which I've shared with you today is unorthodox. Typically, this story is understood as a critique of Judaism. Judaism is identified with the old wineskins and Christianity with the new wineskins. But that is a supersessionist reading, a reading that treats Judaism as old and past and Christianity as new and real. It's also anachronistic to who Jesus was. He was a Jew who didn't have any idea about Christianity. There was no such thing. The analogy to the student, what we might call a Buddha mind or a student mind, was a common analogy that rabbis would indeed use in parables to talk about the old wineskin and the new wineskin. The story comes in Luke and in the other Gospels in the midst of conversations with Pharisees and others about these strange people that Jesus has recruited, fishermen and all kinds of other weird folks. So the student-focused reading, I think it makes sense, but it is not what you will find in most of your Bible commentary books. But I'm not interested in advancing a reading of the text that denigrates Judaism, which Luke, the author of this version of the story, admires rather than resents. Luke is also interested in the convert, the Roman or the Greek, who wants to know how to follow Jesus, who's heard this story of this person and wants to know how to be part of it. So this passage is a reassurance. You don't have to be old wine to be good, to be worthy of the message. You can be a weirdo, a tax collector, a fisherman, an outcast, and Jesus welcomes you. So that's point one. Point two is this. We sang this morning, Answering the Call of Love. And that was not the original name of this song. It was first called Standing on the Side of Love. There was a whole campaign, a public witness campaign, about how we Unitarian Universalists stand on the side of love. We had yellow t-shirts and everything. It was a way to organize our justice work, and it came out of a song. We stand on the side of love. But folks, particularly the Reverend Teresa Soto and others, Teresa Soto is actually the spouse of the Reverend Sean Dennison, the author of our reading, Can You Believe in a World Where Mistakes Are Simply Ways of Learning? Folks like Teresa and others said standing is an issue. Not all of us stand. Teresa moves about in a wheelchair. Not all of us stand. And the composer did not get defensive or argue or whatever. He said, that's a good point. They talked about it. A new way of learning. And the lyric changed to answering the call of love. And it's not just the change from standing to answering that's so powerful to me. It's also the change from side to call. From side to call. Is love a side? They're either good or bad, us and them, lovers and haters. Or is love a call? An invitation to keep learning, to keep building, to grow and reach. Is love something you have or don't have? Or is it something you move toward and that moves with you when you move toward it? I think theologically the answer is clear. Love isn't a destination, it's a way. It's not just a goal, it's a method. Those are the two asides. Back to the story. Because perhaps while you sleep, after the party at Levi's house, after your conversation with Dina and Samuel and Theo, these things come to you as if in a dream. Something like them anyway. Perhaps while you dream, you hear the story in a new way, the wine and the jugs and the bursting of the old wine skins, the taste of sweetness and healing. Maybe while you dream, it comes to you in a new way. And yes, Theo, beloved, radical, visionary, yes, make them hear you. Make them hear you. Sing it, shout it, proclaim it. Yes. Yes, Samuel, beloved friend, we must build the world we dream of. We must make what is to come so that our revolution makes something new, not just rivers of blood. Yes, Dina, beloved truth teller, we need open minds, we need new ideas, we need not to think we already know all the answers. Yes, it's all true. And there are many instruments in the band, many ways to make the new day real, to make justice and peace, ways to answer the call of love, to answer the call, to respond to the invitation. And each one must do what each one is called to. What does love call you to? The wine and the skins. You think about the split skin, the old skin torn. And you think about torn skin, literally torn skin. Skin torn by the weapons of war, by the literally back-breaking work of poverty wages, skin torn by violence and empire, wine, blood spilled out on the ground. And what then is the call of love? Is it maybe to heal the torn skin? Is that it? Let the earth be restored, every soul be reformed, let the healing renew, creation reborn. Let the healing renew. Let the healing renew. You wake and wander through the streets, holding this image in your heart, the healed skin. The old skin, treated tenderly. The healing cup of hope, the earth restored, the soul restored. You see Theo with his friends protesting as you're walking along the streets. Make them hear you, you think, and you say, how can we heal this broken world so that Theo and his friends are heard, really heard? And you pray for him that he will be heard, and you pray, too, that his trauma, his hurt, and that of those he cares for will be healed. And as if still in a dream, you see some of them laughing and protesting with some joy. Maybe there are even costumes and red floppy feet. Maybe this is a dream, a vision, something from the future, a faraway place, a protest filled with joy. And the attractiveness of laughter to build a movement of love. And you keep walking, and you see people at the park eating lunch and going about their day, and pray that they may find healing and love. You see the Roman soldier far from home, and you pray that he may be an instrument of healing and not one of pain. And you pray for his soul. You catch your own shadow in the sun, and you stop there and pray for yourself. May I answer the call of love? May I hear it? May I be an agent of the healing power of creation? You pray, may I keep learning? Can you believe that you can be a chief collaborator with love? A new way, a new day. It was morning, it was evening, a new day. And you move around those streets and these streets through time and space and history, past and present and future, and you see those around you and feel the skin of your own body. I invite you. I welcome you. I urge you to answer the call of love. How does love call you? What does the new day look like? How does it feel? How can you get uncomfortable so that you and others can find real comfort and peace and justice? How do we keep our skins, all our skins, from being torn? What does healing look like? What does it need for ourselves, for others, for the world we share together? What does the new day feel like? Can you taste it? Touch it, feel it? Can you have an open mind to the new? Can you learn to restore your tenderness? Can you hold every other person in love? Can you put aside notions of sides, of good and evil forever as fixed positions, and move toward the call, the way, the method of love, to make the new day real today in your heart, in all you meet, and in all you do. I welcome the new day, the new way, and pray for its soon arrival in our hearts and in the world. We'll sing together, Building a New Way. Put the words up on the screen. Tim will sing and play here at the church. We hope you'll sing along at home.
We are building a new way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way, feeling stronger every day. We are building a new way. We are working to be free. We are working to be free. We are working to be free. Hate and greed and jealousy. We are working to be free. We can feed our every need. We can feed our every need. We can feed our every need. Start with love, that is the seed. We can feed our every need. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Without these, this world will die. Peace and freedom is our cry.
Be sure to join Chris and others for coffee hour in a few minutes on the Zoom. We'd hope to see you there and connect with others. If you're new, you're welcome too. It's a great way to meet some other folks in this church. And it's not just the four of us here in the building, but a wide variety of folks. Lindsay will extinguish our chalice here at the church. I invite you to extinguish your chalice at home. But we extinguish not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry with us until we are together again. The words of our benediction from the actor and singer and activist Paul Robeson, who reminds us that sorrow will one day turn to joy. All that breaks the heart and oppresses the soul will one day give place to peace and understanding, and everyone will be free. May it be so. May we help make it so by answering the call of love this day and every day. We'll sing together our sung benediction.
Go your way in peace, wander as you may. Blessed is the path you take, may love guide you on your way. Go our way in peace, wander as we may. Blessed is the path we take, may love guide us on our way.